Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and today I'll be taking a look at the Death Knight Legendaries. Unlike the other classes that I've covered in earlier videos, I've actually haven't taken a look at these Legendaries or tried them in the past, so this Legendaries are going to be kind of first time seeing and first time reacting to a lot of them. Legendaries are returning in Shadowlands, and they're going to be a little bit different than Legion. They're not going to be RNG earned, so you'll actually get to craft them from recipes. Right now on Torghast, you have to do like an hour-long questline to get these, so I've got as many Legendaries as I could. And this is still also early alpha, so these legendaries are most likely going to change. There might have been a legendary or two that I might have missed, but I tried to make as many as I could from the vendor, so I want to test them out. So for Unholy Death Knight, we're going to start off with a couple legendaries. It seems to be that there will be 4 available for Blood DK, 3 for Unholy, 3 for Frost. Actually, 2 for Frost, 2 for Unholy. And then there's like 5 that are not spec specific. First, we're going to start with Unholy Death Knight. Here we have reduces the cloak, reduces the runic power cost of Death Coil by 10. So Death Coil becomes a 30 runic cost ability. Is it 40 normally? It is 40 normally. Okay. And it also increases the duration of Dark Transformation by 2 extra seconds. So Dark Transformation from your ghoul lasts 15 seconds. So we're going to try to pop our ghoul and use as many Death Coils in order to keep him in transformed power as long as possible. Well, Death Coil 3 times. I want to see if it actually increases. So I think we did get past the normal 15 second CD. So we have them at 10 right now. So then it's up to 12 to 11. Yeah, so you can maintain your ghoul there for quite a while. I think you'll basically have the ghoul maybe for, I don't know, you have 15 seconds normally. Maybe you can get him up to like 25 seconds, right? So 10 extra seconds on him. I guess it depends on how much haste you have and if you generate a lot of Death Coils. So if you get really lucky on some of your procs, you might be able to get quite a few Death Coils in. That seems like a really plain, but also a very, very simple legendary as well. Not a bad one by any measure, just, you know, not the most exciting one either. Another Unholy DK legendary is your attacks have a chance to summon a super zombie that shambles towards and explodes, dealing a bunch of shadow damage to an enemy and applying festering wound to 8 nearby targets. So this has a bit of cleave. So this works from AoE or just base damage. I'm actually going to realign my pets to a smaller target just because with the big one I can fall off. Plus it's hard to see some of these effects. So a chance on... Oh, there he goes. So he walks up and he explodes. And it does quite a bit of damage, doesn't he? I think he did. Damage Shambler and... where is he? I'm having a hard time seeing the Shambler in the combat log. Is it just me? I swear to God I was looking at it as closely as I could. So he does a bit of damage. That's all I know. Man, maybe this is just getting late for me. But I'm struggling to find the... Oh, there he is. Okay. So this is somewhere in here. Would have been the Shambler. Am I... Oh, wow. He procced again? Maybe this has a very low proc chance, but it's very internal, and it doesn't look like it applies into my combat log, so I can really see the damage. Prison Skulker, Cruncher, Holy Strength, Melee, Skulker Shot. Yeah, so I don't think it shows up properly in your combat log, so I wonder how difficult would it be to track, like, when you log in this. But you just saw, like, you proc twice, 2 of them basically back in a row. So what if this is like a 5% chance, and you're just always rolling the dice, but you can basically proc a bunch. But yeah, that's a very interesting legendary. Seems a little bit random. Also, it's a little bit weird how I can't find it anywhere in combat log. I'm either blind or I'm falling asleep. And finally, we have one more legendary, which are the pants. Dark Transformation also increases monstrosities, increases the attack speed and damage done by your pet when you transform into Dark Monstrosity. So we're gonna go for this pet instead, or this train dummy. Get my pet to attack him. So normally he does, you know, a bit of damage, claws things. Dark Transformation, so now he is enraged. Oh, my damage too. So 20% damage for you and your pet. That seems strong. I would love to use it in PvP. So I think you would want to get a full army of pets, and then you would buff your monstrosity. Does it only buff you on your monstrosity? Or do your undead pets take the buffs that you have, like the 20%? Or am I wrong? This seems really, really good. I actually kind of like it. I like it. That seems really strong. Well, we have an RNG legendary for Unholy. We have kind of a consistent for longer pet transformation or a beefier pet transformation. Again, makes you want to play Unholy Pact for that extra 8% strength damage. Or maybe even Unholy Blight, which now also makes your minions do more damage to the enemy. This could be a really cool combo. And then we have some Frost Death Knight legendaries. We have a returning legendary. Oh no, maybe it's a trait effect. Or is it a legendary? I think that actually might be a legendary. There's also a little bit of lag on the servers, which is going to be unfortunate. Frostworm's Fury has a 50% reduced cooldown. So it goes from a 3-minute, or wait, does it actually, is it 6 minutes? There's no way. 3 minutes? So it goes down to a minute 0.5, I would think. And freezes all enemies you hit for 3 seconds. Okay, so the cooldown reduction didn't actually work. But apparently it can freeze things. But it didn't freeze this train dummy. Does this actually work or does it not? But it's cool that this one is here in the game. Although I question how usable is it. I question if it's actually, yeah, I wonder if it's not working at all. It could be just not working whatsoever. I think this will be really good in Mythic Pluses and maybe in PvP. I do like that freeze for 3 seconds. I think if you line up everybody in PvP every 1.5 minutes, this could be quite cool if legendaries can be used in PvP. But yeah, so this is going to be an old school favorite if you played back in Legion. Then we have the Belt for Frost. Remorseless Winter damage is increased by, I like how there's 2 Y's in by, 15%. So Remorseless Winter damage is increased by 50%. The first time Remorseless deal damage to 3 different enemies, you gain Rhyme. So if I were to Remorseless and just tag all these 3 enemies, I will gain a proc, I guess. Let's try to see if we can do it. 1, 2, 3 enemies, we got Rhyme. Yeah, so this ability just does a lot more damage, which is kind of cool. I think the synergy is obvious here to go with Gathering Storm. I believe this is either a legendary from Legion or earlier expansions, or an effect from earlier expansions like a tier bonus, or this is a BFA trait. I don't remember where you get this one from, but this seems quite strong. It seems quite good for AoE, and I think it could also be good for single target with Gathering Storm. Yeah, not a bad. I can't really say much about Frost legendaries really. It just seems pretty straightforward. I don't think this is a bad one, especially if you want to go for intermittent damage. Finally, we have the Shoulders, and the Shoulders read: Obliterate deals 10% increased damage and has a 15% chance to refund 2 ruins. Now, if you're someone who wants to play a big Obliterate build, maybe with a big old 2-hander, maybe with a big old Inauxiliable Assault, big old Obliteration while you're at it, playing this with this legendary right now, Obliterate doing more damage, especially if it crits its full Frost damage, that could be quite awesome. I actually would be super excited. So let's try going for a bit of the 10% extra damage that it can do. We're gonna go for AoE. We'll go get the Remorseless Winter. We'll try to get as many Obliterate crits in there as we can, and they hit quite hard. Oh my goodness. And it has a chance to gain me back runes too, a 50% chance. I don't know if I've gotten the chance yet, but it's quite nuts. I actually like it a lot. I like it a lot. I like this legendary quite a bit. Frost Death Knights, all I can say is they got some really there we go. The runes came back immediately as soon as they got used. So that could be really cool. But for Frost Death Knights, what can you say? They're very, very simple legendaries, all of them. None of them are bad. They're just, a lot of them are kind of simplistic. I guess Unholy Death Knights, they're also very simple too. They're effective, but they don't give you like crazy new effects or anything like that. It's a very, very, very interesting how they're making Death Knights, I guess, some of the more plain legendaries in a way. They're not bad by any measure, they just don't have any wackiness to them. And then we have the Blood DK legendaries. Now, Blood Death Knights are looking kind of, I would say, squishy, but they're looking really strong in the next expansion from what I've been able to see. Of course, there's going to be more balancing by Blizzard, so all this is subject to change. But from what I've been able to test with them, in dungeons, their health bounces back and forth. But overall, they don't seem bad. They bring quite a bit of utility already, and self-heals is still quite high. They're really cool, very unique, and lots of cool new abilities available this expansion. When it comes to the legendaries, they have some really interesting ones, really good ones too. First of all, we have this simple one here. Death Strike refunds 15% runic power spent if it heals you for more than 10% of your maximum health. If you as a Blood DK are going to take a lot of big hits, your Death Strike will heal you based on how much damage you recently took. So normally as a Blood DK, you would try to maintain your full bone shield to give yourself as much armor as possible. And as you get tagged by an enemy, maybe with a powerful hit, you will Death Strike right after in order to gain that health back. So as you dipping down super low and you're having to heal yourself a lot, gaining back runic power on your death strikes will mean less time you need to spend your globals on heart strikes and all the other abilities to gain that runic power. So you'll just be getting a lot of runic power back if you heal yourself for a lot. So kind of just a useful legendary depending on the situation. So situational legendary, but also quite good, especially when it comes to management of resources. We have the Shoulders for Blood Decay. When a charge of Bone Shield is consumed, the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon is reduced by 30 seconds. It's actually supposed to be 3. Additionally, when Dancing Rune Weapon fades, your rune generation rate is increased by 40% for 10 seconds. Again, another situational but also useful legendary. So when you summon your, so again, we talked about Bone Shield charges. So you have Bone Shield, which is something you just maintain all times. As you get hit by enemies, it consumes stacks of Bone Shield. And so now Dancing Rune Weapon will be on a 2-minute cooldown, where you summon a rune weapon that attacks with you. So it'll help you generate resources and can help you generate Bone Shields and runic power. It'll also grant you 40% parry chance. So against melee attacks, you'll be parrying between you and your weapon a lot of enemies. So this is quite a cool legendary overall. Just the effect of it is really solid. And to be able to get it back faster as you're getting tagged by enemies their attacks are consuming Bone Shields, it is quite nice too. But also what's nice about it is when the Bone Shield is over, when the ability is done and done with, you'll also be able to get a buff for extra runic power generation. So let's say if you are constantly having to use that runic power for death strikes, you'll have an easier time. Again, just a really solid legendary, I think, put together. Situational for sure. I think this would be better for a lot of physical damage, but the buff itself that comes with, it's quite good to make the Death Knight a little bit more tanky. Then we have Pants with Heart Strike, reducing the main cooldown of your Vampiric Blood by 2 seconds. Heart Strike is an ability you use a bit as a Blood Decay. You mostly want to maintain your Mara Ren to get your Bone Shields. Then you'll go for Blood Boil since they don't cost any runic power and they do quite a bit of damage, and they spread your dots very easily. And I guess whenever you have nothing else to do, when you don't need Bone Shield charges, you will Heart Strike. But I also found myself using Heart Strike quite often in dungeon packs to pick up aggro. If I don't have a rogue tricks and damage to me, or tricks and aggro to me, I really have to spam Heart Strike. So Heart Strike being usable on Vamp Blood, which is a massive cooldown for you that increases your health and healing by a ton for quite a while, 12 seconds. So being able to get this ability faster in dungeons and raids can mean life or death. It means that you may be able to withstand really tough situations as you kind of vampirically siphon health from enemies. Together with the talent of Red Thirst, reduces the cooldown of Vampiric Blood for every 10 runic power spent. We can actually put on a timer to see how fast this ability comes back. So we'll just spam Heart Strikes, and when we have runic power, we'll just Death Strike, just to see how fast can we get it if you're like focusing on getting this ability. Of course, you won't be spamming Heart Strike all the time. You will need Mara Rens, you'll need Blood Boils, you will need to Rune Tap, you will need to use Blood Tap, Grips, Interrupts, all those other abilities. But if you were to just like min-max it, I wonder if a runic weapon can actually help me, because this gives me an extra Heart Strike. I actually think it does help. I actually think it does help a little. So we're just going to go for as many Heart Strikes as we can. When we're stuck on Heart Strikes, we'll go for Death Strikes. Heart Strike some more, Heart Strike some more. We'll Blood Tap in order to get an extra Heart Strike. Blood Tap to get another Heart Strike. Death Strike for Vampiric. I didn't even do a timer on this. I probably should have. But how fast was that? I probably should have done a timer. How quick was that? That was so fast. I kind of want to try this again. I want to try using this without the weapon, but I kind of want to... Wow, that was quick. And we'll just start hitting it as much as we can. We're about to cap on runic power, so we'll Death Strike it just for the sake of spending it. Back to Heart Strike spam. And we're already under a minute of cooldown already with this ability. And we're having a bit of server lag, but that's alpha for you. Maybe we can get a little bit of value. More Heart Strikes. More Heart Strikes. Don't really have anything else we can do. More Heart Strikes. Death Strike. 30 seconds of Vampiric Blood. That is huge, but we were focusing on it too. So if you weren't focusing, you know, you would get maybe a Heart Strike here and there. That will still reduce the cooldown of Vampiric Blood, which is one of the... It is the literally lifeblood of Blood Death Knights. It is the holy grail of their big defensive cooldown. So it is quite huge. It is actually huge. Finally, we have the creme de la creme for Blood Death Knights is the chest piece. Your Vamp Blood, which we just talked about being a very powerful ability, very important for Blood Death Knights, will also affect your party members for 50% of its effect it has on you. So Vampiric Blood will increase my health by 30% and increases all healing and absorbs received by 35%. So when I use this, my allies for how long? For the full duration of 12 seconds will gain 15% more health and roughly half of 35%. So what is it, like 15, 17, between 17 and 18% extra healing from your healer and other sources. This seems busted good. As a Blood Death that you bring a massive raid utility. I mean, you already brought Anti-Magic Zone, that was huge, but now if you use this and you give everybody Vamp Blood for 12 seconds, this is nuts. Imagine playing with a bunch of Demon Hunters that have full Leech build, and basically you and 4 Demon Hunters, just a massive mechanics is going to go out, lots of AoE damage, just pop Vamp Blood, and Demon Hunters go into Demon form and just leech their health back. There's definitely going to be some cheese using these legendaries, but a very, very powerful effect for Blood Death Knights overall. And then we got a lot of legendaries that are not spec specific, so I want to take a look at those and see if they're going to be strong or looking strong at all for the next expansion. These are able to be used by all specs. I mean, technically all these legendaries can be used by other specs. Technically, I think you can use this as a Frost Death Knight if you want to, but I highly doubt you're going to want to end up using Death Strike in order to heal yourself and gain Runic, unless maybe you're going for some big dueling build for PvP. That could always be a possibility. But we have a Torghast legendary or Torghast anima ability on this necklace. Your Frost Fever, Blood Plague, and Vertilion Plague also apply the other diseases. So if you wanted to be a dot lord, just put this on as Frost, Unholy, or Blood and apply every single dot in the game. So what's the damage in a single go here? That's how much damage is a dot? Hold on. 149 plus 160 together. The Frost Fever and Vertilion Plague are doing how much? 500. So 580 a dot. So 500 a dot tick. That seems a little bit busted good. You also have different effects with all these. I think Frost Fever generates you runes every time it ticks. I could be wrong on that one. No, it doesn't actually. I thought it did. I think maybe for Frost it did. Vertilion Plague can do eruption damage to AoE, and your Blood Plague siphons health from an enemy, so it's a heal as well. So imagine being able to put this on a bunch of enemies. They all take an AoE damage, take an extra Frosty single target damage, and you also are siphoning health from them. That could be insanely cool in PvP. Imagine doing a BG and you just pop Vertilion Plague everywhere, spread it mass to everybody, and the whole enemy team is just... I love the dot component of this. I love that it makes me feel like a warlock with a massive two-hander. Something about this just makes me giddy. I like this legendary. Then we have another one that's more defensive. Increase the duration of anti-magic shell by 100%, and any damage it absorbs heals you. So the duration of anti-magic shell is going to be then 10 seconds. So all of this that it absorbs for 7,000 match damage, you can use this at lower health, not before you drop low, but at lower health, and it'll absorb and heal you. This could be really strong. Well, even for Blood Death Knights, this could be really good for another self-heal. It makes a minute-long cooldown of anti-magic gel now also a heal. I actually like this a lot. And it also gives you, generates runic power. It's insanely strong. I like this a lot. Then we have Shoulders here. You and your minions gain 10% haste while you are inside Death and Decay. Enemies damaged by your Death and Decay have a chance to cower in place for 3 seconds. So as a Frost Death Knight, you wouldn't really use Death and Decay, but with 10% extra damage, and you can like raise dead on top of it too, so you can raise a dead. You can make sure that you and your undead are hitting the same target. Come here, little guy. Please help me. Papa needs you. Then you can drop Death and Decay, and both of you have 10% extra haste while you're inside of Death and Decay. This can synergize really well with the Covenant ability from the Fae, because for Death Knights, it replaces your Death and Decay for a stronger version of Death and Decay. So together with that ability and this legendary, you could have a very interesting combination together. Whether you're Unholy, Blood Death Knight, which are more synergetic to Blood Death and Decay, or at this case, Frost, because it also, I think, increases the duration of that ability as well. The new Death and Decay, the Fae version of Death and Decay. But yeah, that's kind of a decent legendary. I mean, 10% extra haste, especially if it lasts quite a while. To you and your pets as well. That could be pretty good. I think this definitely fits more for Unholy, but it is not Unholy specific. You can use it as Blood DK and Frost Death Knight as well. Imagine going into a dungeon and using Control Undead on a very powerful dungeon enemy in there that maybe does a lot of damage or fast casts. You drop down Death and Decay on top of it, and now you and your pet have like this mini Bloodlust. I think it could totally be quite good. I do like the fact that Blizzard is at least using the abilities found in Torghast as legendaries, even though maybe not the strongest version we've ever seen, you know, the strongest ability on Torghast available, because some of the strongest ones are wildly broken, but this is still cool. I like that Blizzard is using some of the newer effects added in this expansion as potential legendaries. We have a Helm where Deathstrike and Deathcoil deal 10% increased damage and reduce the remaining cooldown of Death and Decay by 2 seconds. I think this is like a more Blood DK legendary or Unholy for AoE. Actually, for Unholy, this could be quite good for AoE, because a lot of your AoE damage counts on Death and Decay. But also, again, synergizes really well with the Fey Covenant, because your ability, your Fey ability, it replaces your Death and Decay. So this actually synergizes really well with that ability in particular as a Death Knight, when you think about it. Not the strongest legendary, but definitely something worth considering. I feel like it's not that good for Frost though. 10% damage to Deathcoil. So normally as Frost, you do damage with your Frost Strike, which does 939 damage overall. Yeah, this costs 25 runic power, right? So it does quite a bit. This costs 40 runic power. So I don't really know if it'll actually be that good. I need more runes just for this. I don't know if it'll actually be that good. I mean, Death and Decay, maybe with a specific situation. Maybe Death Strikes could also be really good for PvP self-healing. But I kind of doubt it. I kind of doubt this is going to be good for Frost. But still, good legendary. Finally, we have Boots with I think a PvP bonus effect from previous expansions. For 3 seconds after casting Death Grip, you may cast the spell a second time without regard for its cooldown. So if you want to move 2 things next to you, Death Grip, you could do that. As a Blood DK, as an Unholy Death Knight, or as a Frost. Again, not the strongest legendary, but if you really need somebody to stop running away from you in PvP, and Chain of Ice is not enough, double gripping them to interrupt their casts can be useful in that regard. But yeah, not a bad legendary. I think, yeah, I think every single spec and every single class in the game has some sort of a mobility inspired legendary, and this is going to be like the Death Knight quote unquote mobility, more like bringing the enemies to you kind of mobility. Not a bad legendary. I think this guy should be, again, very much an underdog that could be useful in some key situations, especially in dungeons where there's a lot of enemies casting spells at you, or, you know, they are super far away and you can kind of group them around all over the place. So that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, really simple legendary. And that's going to be all the Death Knight legendaries we have to take a look at for today. Again, early alpha, so they might add more in the future, and they could rebalance these at a later time. But I'd want to hear from you guys, which ones do you think are looking exciting or cool? I actually enjoyed a lot of the Blood Death Knight legendaries. I thought they were really, really strong. And also, huge fan of the multi-dot legendary that you can get from Torghast. I think that one would actually be insanely strong in some key situations. But overall, I think a lot of the Death Knights have gotten things that help them, but they're not really like massively out of control, outscaling the content or anything like that. It's going to be some more tame legendaries, but already Death Knights are looking pretty strong in this expansion already. And what's cool is legendaries sometimes can feel like they are finally making a spec strong, but in case of Death Knights were already pretty strong to begin with, so you don't really get nearly the same feel. At least I currently don't. But anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Legendaries for Death Knights are looking quite cool. Nothing too massive or crazy, but definitely upgrades here and there. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts. I'll see all of you guys in another video.